Hey, thanks for joining us tonight on the Scabbard. I'm Dave Valente. Uh, well, that last game really kind of pissed me off. It was a frustrating game to watch. Um, we can just start right out with our stat of the night. The Sabers outshot the Blues 46-20, losing 6-4, overcoming a 3 goal deficit, only to allow a second round of 3 goals from the Blues. The push for offense to get back into the game led to a lot of things that I was. Let's just go to the review. It reminded me of last season, like a microcosm of all the things that were wrong about last season. The you know with sprinkled in with some good stuff, like the Sabers offense getting going, like at least creating chances. As probably as dynamic a game as they've had. Um, but they really left a lot on the table, especially when it comes to shots and goals. Goals especially. There are several just gilt-edged chances that they could have buried. Um, I think the Casey Middlestat duff was almost as not quite as bad as the Pominville blocking his own shot on the doorstep. um, and I kinda get why he missed that shot. It was tipped going into his stick, and he really caught it on the heel and just couldn't get enough on it to get into the goal. But that goal would have put Buffalo up 4-3. And fairly soon after that is when, the Blues really started picking up the play and exploiting Buffalo's riskiness. Um, Buffalo controlled a lot of periods of that game. They had tremendous puck control. The zone time was, especially after it got to 3-0. Even when they were, getting scored on, they were having good periods of lots of zone time and getting good chances on Jordan Binnington. The thing I think they didn't do enough on Jordan Binnington was getting in on top of him and, maybe giving him the occasional bump, throwing some ice on him, those type of things to get into his head because we've seen Jordan Binnington flip his lid. So, that was I think the one thing that they didn't do, and I think they could have done that would have probably flipped that game. UPL made a great save at the beginning of the game, rolling over on the side, getting his arm out, stopping. Really good scoring chance from the Blues, but on the next face-off, and again, face-offs continue to hurt the Sabers. First 2 goals of the game were directly off of face-off wins. The first goal and then the second goal in the power play. Um, but yeah, after that, it was a very, very shaky night for EPL. His defense didn't do a whole lot for him, especially that middle third. But I think he overplayed, especially the second of the 3 goals that St. Louis scored in response to Buffalo's 3 goals. He overplayed the shot from that led to can't remember his name. But the defenseman coming in and scoring the goal, basically a wide open net because UPL was hell almost in the trapezoid on that side of the ice. Um, yeah, it was not a great game for UPL. It was 6 goals on 15 shots at one point, and ended up being 6 goals on 20 shots. You know, Buffalo played for like almost the entire last 5 minutes of the game with with UPL on the ice and didn't give up a goal. It was kind of amazing. If they played that kind of defense the entire night, they may not have skated away without any points. Um, but yeah, they were offensively created. Several chances went begging. The middle stat one, there was one by Cousins that hit his stick, and he was not able to get his stick on the puck to knock it in a fairly empty net. There were several chances between the time that the Sabres scored their third goal and the Blues getting back into the game and scoring those 2 goals within 24 seconds that had Buffalo scored, I think this game is completely different. I think Buffalo runs away with it, because that would have been completely demoralizing for the Blues. But they get the 2 goals in 24 seconds and then, hold on. There was a third period was a pretty furious charge by the Sabres. Um, and again, it was the puck luck of that game that, Buffalo just did not bury it. It was a very frustrating game to watch. So, we have to remember that this is a young team, and I know I harp on the face-off issue, because the face-offs are, you know, key is, like, if you can get the face-off right, everything else kinda falls into place. As a young team, when you're facing up against older veteran centers, they have they have the advantage, yeah, just on experience alone, um, and will Buffalo get better at faceoffs? My hope is yes, and my hope is they bring in folks to help address that issue and get these young centers up and getting their faceoff percentages above 50%. Um, but yeah, this is a young team. We have to remember it's one of the youngest teams, and it's a conscious choice by by the brass. So if we're critical of the team's youngness and the mistakes, this was a conscious decision of Buffalo. I was listening to the Baker Fairburn uh, podcast the other last night, talking about how Patrick Kane chose Detroit. He had his choice: Florida, Buffalo, and Detroit. The dollar and term that he signed, he could have signed anywhere. Um, he made the conscious choice, basically telling Kevin Adams that Buffalo is just not good enough for his services at this point. Um, and their point was that this should light a fire under Kevin Adams. If he wants to do something, he needs to do something. I know there's a commitment, there's a idea to really foster the development of young players, not hold young players back that are ready, just to bring in a veteran body. But if your stated goal is to make the playoffs this season, um, you're going to have to bring something in. The other teams have done enough to really get their game going. And right now Detroit's ahead of us. Ottawa's behind us. The three teams that a lot of people are saying are the up and coming teams in the Atlantic Division. Detroit's ahead of us. They've done a different development model. They brought in a lot of veteran voices into the lineups. Not so much. Yeah, they do have Mo Sider, but bringing in guys like Perron and Fabry and uh, augmenting the lineup around Dylan Larkin and stuff like that, I think have gotten Detroit's path a little more accelerated. Now, we can make the argument, well, Buffalo's better staged for longer term success. Yes and no. If you can't get over the hump of getting into the playoffs, how are they going to learn how are they going to learn to get past and be that playoff team, that longer term success? Um, I think this is a key year in their development that they do need to get in the playoffs. Even if it's a four and done in the first round, they just need to get past that hump to get off that number. Everyone said 12 years, it's going to be 13. At this point, it is going to be 13 if they don't make some kind of change to shore up. Now, I've seen other people talk about, well, it's not the kid's problem, and they're right. Benson's been wonderful. Johnson's been really good, except for the last game, and apparently had a little bit of a ding in the last game. But having a off night, one night, I'm not going to rag on Johnson. I'm not going to rag on Benson, who was injured and had a couple off nights before he went on IR. Um, uh, Benson's been driving a lot of offense. There's no complaint about Jack Benson. Um, but there have been complaints about guys that he brought in, like Connor Clifton has been just awful. He's drawing back into the lineup tonight. But Clifton was not out there last night, and you this is a free agent you brought in to shore up the defense, and the Johnson Clifton pairing has probably been our worst one. I don't mind Johnson so much, but Clifton has, he's been. It feels like pucks are going in off of him, and sometimes you just wear it. Like a player just gets that aura around them that yeah, they're getting in shot lanes, but they're not doing enough to actually block the shot. They're just tipping it in. They're being a tip for the defenseman or the forward trying to get the shot through. Um, so hopefully the night off gives Clifton a chance to reevaluate his game and refocus his game and get him on a better path. But as to the Baker Fairburn podcast, they talked about this should be a challenge to Kevin Adams. What are you going to do Now that Patrick Kane's not gonna be the guy, and again, I still don't know that Patrick Kane was what we need. I don't think Patrick Kane is what Detroit needed. Um, the Detroit Red Wings are not having any problems scoring goals. They're not having any problems on the power play. And those are the 2 places I would if I was having issues, uh, with my team scoring goals and scoring on the power play, I would bring him in, and to that sense, he did make a little bit of sense for the Buffalo Sabres, but it's not the wing play that I'm really worried about. It's the center play that I'm worried about with scoring goals and winning power play possession time and things like that. So, all right, that's enough about the Blues game. Hopefully, you can move past it. Again, I'm really sick of this roller coaster of winning one, winning one, losing three, winning two. It's draining because you're like, "What is this team?" And I don't think they even know what this team is now. Are you trying to be more offensive? It worked against the Rangers, but you guys played better defense against the Rangers. You, let the Blues get ahead of you 3-0, and then you go Katie bar the door on offense, and your defense reverts back to what we saw last year, just guys skating down the middle and getting massive, chances on your goaltending. Um, so what is this team? We need an identity of some sort other than a team that is just kind of moseying along. Because the cool thing for at least from a Buffalo standpoint is that the Atlantic Division has been fairly static. Like you got teams that are hanging around that middle section of the division. We're not that far out. We're only 3 points behind, Tampa for the last playoff spot, and Tampa was getting run the last time I looked at the score. It was like 6-1 in the second period. I don't know what the final was in that Dallas game, but, there's it's time to, establish an identity, and not a bad identity, establish a good identity, whether you're going to be an offensive team that is going to rely on your goaltender to make key saves because you're not focusing on it. You're gonna be a balanced team that's gonna try and, create offensive opportunities off of your defense, or you're just gonna be a defensive juggernaut. We tried the defensive stuff. We dropped, our goals scored per game, really low. Um and I don't know that the team's psyche is enough that it can play that type of game, 82 games, or even, where we're now at like 50 some odd games, 60 some odd games left in the season. Um, I don't know if they're mentally ready to do that kind of game. They have to. Uh, it's either going to be a balance, or we're just going to go offense and hope that the defense is a little bit is marginally better than what we saw last season. And the goaltending is marginally better than what we saw last season, because it's not working. But again, if you go off of where we were at last season, um, we're a little bit ahead. We were like 10-13-0 last season. At this point, we are 10-11-2. So we got 2 more points than we did last season at this point. So a little bit of progress. Again, we missed the playoffs by 1 point, but we've got to start picking up points now. I've said this last few episodes. Start picking up points because we've got to start. We got to maintain contact with the lead group in the Atlantic Division, because you don't want to be in a situation going down the stretch where you've got to go, uh, 8-2-1 in your final 11 games to be able to make the playoffs. It's an unrealistic expectation. Um, so start winning, start picking up points, get more consistent play. That's, another thing. We've just been so inconsistent this season. Great game, horrible game. Great game, horrible game. Last time was a good offensive game, but a horrible defensive game. I'm just stop the roller coaster, and please don't make the roller coaster just go down. That would suck. But anyway, Carolina Hurricanes coming into. Well, actually, we're going into Raleigh tonight for our second time this season. The Hurricanes are in a little bit better position than they were the last time we played them. They're 13-8-1 and second in the Metropolitan Division, much more in line with what we thought with Carolina Hurricanes going into the season, just behind the Rangers. Um, I think 5 points behind the Rangers at this point, for first place. The Buffalo Sabres lost to them 3-2 in overtime. Um, uh, I think this was at the point where I started saying that Levi has to go down. It was, November 7th. Um, Marty Necas scored in overtime. 2 of the goals in that game were kind of showing Levi's inexperience and, teams are starting to pick up on his overplaying his aggressiveness and using it against him. He was beaten in overtime where he cheated on the pass even though there was a defenseman there to defend the pass, and allowed Barney Natchez, who was leading the team in goals at the time, to snipe a shot on a short side, so to win the game. Sabres got a point. If Sabres get a point tonight, I'll be relatively happy. But they need to start getting wins as well. Um, let's see. Tuvo Teravainen leads the team in goals. He has 10 at this point. Sebastian Aho leads in assists and points at 14 and 20, respectively. And Antti Ranta leads the goalie tandem in wins. The They have had a three-headed monster, although they were much more definitive in how they're dealing with their three goalie tandem. Freddie Anderson was the anointed starter coming into the season. He's been injured. Ranta is in there with Pavel Kochetkov, who's kind of a goalie of the future. Been kind of that goalie of the future for a couple seasons for Carolina. Um, tonight, I believe we're getting Antti Ranta, who has had a really good run against the Buffalo Sabres. So hard night for us ahead. We're gonna have to be on our A game. We're gonna have to bring that we're gonna have to bring the offensive game that we had against St. Louis, but we got to up the defensive ante, or it could get ugly. The Canes projected lines: Michael Bunting, Sebastian Aho, and Seth Jarvis on the first line. Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi, and Teravainen on that second line. That is a deadly second line. Third line: Martin Nuke, Stahl, and Fast, and Nason Drury on Natchez on the fourth line. The defensive pairings tonight: Slavin and Burns, with Shea and Pesci, and Orlov and Chatfield on that third pairing. Um, good defensive 6 guys right there. Even the Chatfield young guys, um, up and coming guys. So um, that's a good group on defense. The goalies, as we said earlier, Ranta being the starter tonight with Kochetkov backing up. Only scratch for the Carolina Hurricanes that we've seen is, of course, Frederick Anderson is on IR with blood clots. He went out just before the Buffalo game on November 7th when they diagnosed the blood clotting issue. He's out an undetermined amount of time. It's a tough one to come back from as a pro athlete, especially a guy who uses their legs. If you getting clotting issues in the legs, that could be it could be fatal. So, and definitely don't want that. Hockey has had enough death in it lately. There was a woman in Finland who died during a game. So um, that's the second one this season, and yeah, there's been enough bad stuff that's happened in hockey. Hopefully, it doesn't come closer to home. Sabres projected lines tonight. We've got Jeff Skinner, Middlestat, and Tuck. That first line, they've kind of solidified the first two lines: Benson, Cousins, Paterka. The third and fourth lines are where we're trying to figure it out a little bit. Krebs, Greenway, Okposo on the third line, and Brandon Byro is drawing back into the lineup with Jost and Olafson. Um, I don't think that's an indictment on Roseanne. I didn't think he was all that out of place in the St. Louis game. Um, uh, yeah, I think that. It's just giving him a chance to check out the game from the press box and yeah, widen his perspective. Sabres defensive pairings: Darling and Samuelson on the first pair, Owen Power with Henry Yoki Haru. Connor Clifton is drawing back in with. Why do I have Alexander there? That must have been an auto correct or something. Anyway, it's Eric Johnson. um, interesting. Eric Johnson. So Ryan Johnson is getting the night off in the press box. Again, This is not something that is new for Granado. Granado does like to take the young guys out for, every once in a while for to get them in the press box to, expand their vision of the ice and see what's going on and bring them back in. It worked with the young guys last season. We'll see how it does for Johnson and Roseanne. Uh, Goalie tandem tonight is Comrie and Lukanen. Comrie getting the start. Um, he was not helped out last Saturday when he played uh, a period against the New Jersey Devils. Got lit up. It was in the 7-2 loss. Again, it was I was hard pressed to blame Comrie on that one. That was just an absolute dumpster fire. Uh, all 23 men, even the scratches were to blame for what happened in that game. That was how bad that game went. But Comrie is the starter. Hopefully, he gets a little bit more support from his teammates tonight. But Luukkonen is backing up. I believe Luukkonen will get the start when the Sabres return home tomorrow against the Predators. Sabre scratches tonight. Tage Thompson, of course, is out. Bryson is a healthy scratch. Gergensen's is IR. Quinn is IR. Of course, we can talk about Ryan Johnson and Roseanne being healthy scratches as well. Tonight's odds provided by DraftKings. Play responsibly. This is kind of what Buffalo has really settled into. I think as long as Buffalo is kind of doing this weird win lose thing, playing great, playing awful, playing great, playing awful. Um, we're going to see the Buffalo being a dog most nights and being in that goal and a half dog over under of about 6.5. That's for several games in a row. That's where the line is kind of flushed out at the beginning of the game. Now it did change during that St. Louis game. It went from 6.5 to I think 10.5 was what it ended up at. And if you play the over, you still got the or no, you didn't get the it was a 6-4 goal game. So um, but yeah, that line changed from 6.5 to 10.5 uh, during the course of that game, and they almost hit the over on that one. All right, let's see. Keys to the game tonight. Let's find balance. Uh, you can't play all defense. You can't play all offense. I think we've seen that both them do both this season, and either you don't score, you're giving up way too many. Find balance. Um, get the first goal. We've been chasing games. Our record in games where we've not scored first is abysmal. While when we've scored first, we have generally done fairly well. And then defend the middle. That was a big key thing with the St. Louis game is that when St. Louis got their 2 goals, they weren't defending the middle all the way down to the crease. Um, Easy tap ins, empty nets. Got to defend the middle. That was the problem last year with our defense was that we were abandoning the middle in order to play a more offensive game, and led to goalie. Yeah, I'm sure anybody who's doing our psychological help for our goalies uh, probably has a lot of last year's games circled on their calendar as to why the goalies are having a little bit of an issue. But speaking of goalies, let's talk about our player profile tonight, and that is Ukko Pekka Luukkonen. I believe the only NHL player with 4 sets of double letters in his name, and that may be in history. I don't know. We've had a few Finnish players play, and I don't think that I've ever seen a player with 4 sets of double letters in his name. So, Mr. Luukkonen, Ukko Pekka Luukkonen, has let's see, he was born on March 9th of 1999. He's a 24-year-old goaltender from Espoo, Finland. Um, let's see, he's 6'5", so he's a sizable goaltender, 212 pounds. He is a left-handed catcher, and he was, of course, drafted by Buffalo as the second-round draft pick for the Buffalo Sabres in 2017, 54th overall. He spent his young career in with the HPK team in Finland. He did play a little bit with TPS during some of the. I think this was during the lockouts or the COVID years 2020 and 2021. He played about 13 games with the TPS team in Turku, Finland. He did get drafted by the Sudbury Wolves in the European draft for the Canadian Hockey League. He played 1 year for the Sudbury Wolves. Was the last foreign player to win the what is that name of the award there? Oh, the Red Tilson Trophy is the most outstanding player. He led Sudbury with a 38-11-2 record. Um, 2.50 goals against average and a 920 save percentage. Um, had some hip issues. Played a game with Rochester America, a little bit of time with the Rochester Americans in 1920. Ended up doing double hip surgery and coming back with the Americans having a year. A couple years in the Rochester, bouncing back and forth with the Sabres. Last season, he was kind of on that yo-yo. When the Sabres needed to bring up a guy, they would put him on basically paper waivers to send him down. He did get a few games with the Rochester Americans, 9 games. Went 6-3 during that limited time with the Rochester Americans last season, but really solidified his place with the Sabres last season. He played really well in December and January, won 9 starts in a row, was the NHL Rookie of the Month in January, going 6-3 in that time, and having over 900 save percentage. Um, and this season, I think he has really kind of established himself as the guy that is, at the very least, if you think that Devin Levi is still the guy that's going to be the future of the Buffalo Sabres goaltending, this is the guy that's going to get you to Levi being a full fledged NHL starting goaltender. Um, I'm not willing to give up on Lukin at this point. Yes, Wednesday, uh, Thursday night was a bad game, but again, that was a defensive effort that can lead to bad games, and I think that his overplaying the puck on that fifth goal was kind of the idea that sometimes when the goalies lose trust, they overplay, trying to make up for defensive mistakes, and Luukkonen got burned with it. So let's see how he learns from that. Not tonight, but tomorrow night versus the Nashville Predators. But I'm still bullish on the future of Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, because that is. Oh, that was an interesting thing at the end of Wikipedia. It says Luukkonen was named after former Finnish president Per Evend Svin. Oh, I'm not even going to try that last name. That's a lot of letters that don't belong together. Um, it was his nickname. So Ukko-Pekka was apparently a Swedish prime or Swedish president's nickname. Interesting. More you know. Um, but yeah, so let's do on this date. This is a special day for the Buffalo Sabres. On this date, December 2nd, 1969. We're not going to have a whole lot of anything before 1970 for the Sabres. So this is 1969. Buffalo was awarded their franchise along with Vancouver. Um, so the Knoxes were awarded a franchise, eventually named the Sabres, and began playing a little bit over a year later. The draft to bring in Gilbert Perreault to the team and build the team around him. But happy day for the Buffalo Sabres. Would like to see a Stanley Cup before I die. On the farm report. Actually, I have not updated this one. They won the other night, so they're 11-5-2. Won last night. Devin Levi got his first start in the AHL um, against, I believe it was Belleville. Yeah, played Belleville last night, and got a win in the shootout. It was a 3-2 victory. Stopped all 4 shots in the shootout, and faced over 40 shots in the game. So, really good start for Devin Levi, and this is what we're hoping to see is that Devin Levi really finds his game, fine tunes some of the stuff that plagued him at the NHL level, gets a little bit of maturity to his game, and comes back all the better. And again, it doesn't have to be this season, but I'm glad to see that Levi has taken this assignment and I don't know if he's playing tonight. I think there's a return match tonight or tomorrow with Belleville, so we'll see how that goes. And I don't know if Levi will play that game, but yeah, we're good first start for Devin Levi. Very happy about that. As far as the Jacksonville Icemen, they are up to third in the Eastern Conference, South Division. Um, the I didn't even check the score today. Apologize for that. We'll get a full report for the game tomorrow night on the farm, as the weekend action will probably be over for both the Americans and the Jacksonville Icemen. The week ahead, so we got them at Nashville tomorrow. Detroit. That should be an interesting game because we might see Patrick Kane make his season debut, although he might need a little bit of time to. He said he was like 60%. I don't know. You want to slap a guy on the ice that's less than 80%. Guys are dinged up, especially as you get closer to the end of the year. He's saying he's 60%. I would probably hold off putting him back in the lineup immediately. Um, and it's not like Detroit really absolutely needs him in the forward core. So, and then we got Boston. We go up to Boston. It's going to be a tough game on December 7th, and then on Saturday of next week we are playing the Montreal Canadiens at home. So we're seeing a little bit more home games on the schedule after that kind of brutal road stretch. And the Sabres have been worse on the road this season than they were last year. They were really good on the road last year. Um, really, what kept them afloat in the season. They're being a little bit better on home ice. They're 500 at home ice, which is not great. You should be like a good team should be 2/3 of their home games or wins, and the road should be about 500. So we're about 500 on the road. We need to pick it up on home ice still. Our next episode again tomorrow night at 6 p.m. as we play the National Predators. And that is it for the evening. I appreciate everybody watching. Sabres game night is on MSG. Go watch Marty and Duffer, or Howard Simon, I think, was there with instead of Duffer last time. Or check out Koziel and Paul Hamilton on the WGR coverage if you're into the radio side. So thanks everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. And give us a like, share, subscribe wherever you're watching us from. We really appreciate it. It helps us out. And we will talk to everybody next on tomorrow night.